Hi there, welcome to Lefty Knits. If you're new here, my name is Molly. I'm a knitter based out of the San Francisco Bay Area where I live with my fiance and our cat Lola. On this channel I talk about all manner of crafty endeavors, mostly of the knitting variety, as I assume you can probably guess from the name. Today I want to talk about my winter knitting plans. Here in the Bay Area, it's still relatively warm, and I mean, it never gets that cold in California. It gets colder in the north, and I mean, in some parts of California, it gets really cold, like way up north. But in the Bay Area, it's like, you know, we'll get like some 40s probably at night. So my winter plans are probably a little less warm than some of yours might be. I'm also not a really big seasonal knitter. I'm not necessarily very good at knitting what is appropriate for that particular season, and some of it might be that here we don't have super distinct seasons. When I lived in Boston, I pretty much only knit in the winter, and I hadn't tackled any sweaters or anything, so I would go crazy knitting like mittens and hats and scarves and cowls and stuff during the winter, but like I didn't knit during the summer because I was too hot most of the time. And I'm really not that way anymore. I'm never really too hot to knit. Maybe if I lived somewhere that got warmer. But I do have a few things that I really want to get done for the winter. I will be visiting my fiance's family in North Alabama for Christmas and New Year's. So it does get a little bit colder there. The temperature can really vary. Like sometimes we're there and it's pretty warm, like as warm or warmer than it is in the Bay Area. Sometimes there are big snowstorms, which they're not super prepared for there. And I think I'd like to be able to bring like 1 or 2 warmer sweaters with me. So I have some of those on my list. And it's also my last shot to take off items from my Make 9. Although there is only one item on the list from my Make 9, and then one from my 2023 Make 9, I think. So I'm not great at checking off those, but still, there's a couple that are from my long-term list that I would like to get done. Obviously, with that said, I'm not super good at following my own plans, especially ones that I have set for more long-term knitting. I think across my life, I always have really loved making plans, but when it comes to actually having to implement them, I'm not quite as good at that. So, I don't know. Anyway, I did try to keep this pretty realistic. I have 2 worsted weight sweaters, a worsted weight vest, and 2 accessories. So it's not a crazy amount to get done, and I do knit pretty quickly. At least, I don't know if I knit fast, like physically, but I do spend a lot of time knitting, so I do get through things pretty fast. So I think that this is relatively reasonable for me to get through. And they are things that it would be really nice to have off of my list, and or things that I have really wanted to cast on recently. So let's go ahead and jump in, starting with my accessories. So the first thing I want to make is the sea glass hat by Woolen Pine. Woolen Pine has a very popular sea glass range. There's like a tee, a sweater, a hat, a cowl. I think they just released mittens. And this hat is one of them. It's a 1x1 colorwork motif, and it's intended to kind of be a stash buster. And the hat in particular is fingering weight. I don't know what all of them are. I think a lot of the sweaters and stuff are worsted DK, something like that. It comes in sizes from newborn to adult large. I believe it's something like 13 to 20 inches is the actual circumference. So you can really make a wide variety of sizes and make one for the whole family. And I'm going to make this in a variety of brightly colored scraps and minis that I have had floating around, along with some natural minis also. I talked previously about some of these neon minis, these little scraps I have. I used these in my Helianthus tank that's a pattern by Injury Gone. I have a little bit left over. So these are Black Squirrel Neon Minis. They don't currently make these. I don't know if they'll bring them back, but they're in these really fun colors. And I have more of a couple of bluish colors, a teal, which I don't think I'll use for this, and then this like blue purple. I also have a whole mini that I haven't used yet from Firebird Yarns. There we go. I've already rolled it up into a ball. Firebird is a yarn shop in San Francisco, and they had lucky dips for the yarn crawl, so I think you paid something like $7, and you were guaranteed a mini skein, and then you also had the possibility of getting a gift card or some other, I don't know, they might have had like stitch markers and stuff. I saw someone else open one and they got a gift card, and I also got a gift card in mine. It was $10 off, which does expire pretty soon. So I think I'll probably be heading back there in the next couple of weeks. This mini is kind of like a brightly colored pink, purpley with a little bit of blue and a little bit of like a lighter, it's not probably quite natural, but just like some lighter shades in there as well. It's super pretty. And I haven't really known what to do with it. I want to do something like special with it. And I'm not much of a sock person, nor do I think I would really want to use this for like cuffs, heels, and toes, because I kind of prefer when I do make socks, if I'm going to use a contrast heel and toe, that it be solid. But anyway, I thought about putting it in a cowl, but it wasn't quite working. I figured maybe using it with some of these neons that I have would work, but I didn't quite know how to incorporate them all. And so in looking across different patterns, I found the sea glass hat, and I thought that actually seems like it's probably a good choice. So the other thing that I have to put with it is these minis from Black Squirrel that I've been sitting on forever. These are undyed minis. The colorway, I don't know if they still name them this way. I think they have a variety of undyed like minis and skeins that you can buy with different bases. This is a 4-ply fingering weight base, 75% South American superwash merino and 25% nylon, and there's 92 yards in this 20-gram hank. But this is called Ecru Brute, little pun there. And this has been sitting around in my stash for a while too. I bought it at the same time as these minis. I think probably intending to use it for like socks, but like I said, I just don't really make socks. I think what I'm gonna do is use this blue purple as my cuff color, and then this mini from Firebird will be my like main color for the body of the hat. I would love to kind of use up and incorporate these minis as well, or what's left of these minis. I think I have like 4 grams or something of each of these. I would love to try to use up these. I don't know if I want to like stripe these. I don't think that this alone would be enough yarn, because it takes, I'll talk about my size dilemma in a second, but for the sizes that I'm thinking I would probably make, it's like 38 to 44 grams of yarn total. I don't know how much is in the cuff, which I won't use this for. I'll use this. So I probably have enough to hold. I don't know. I just don't know. So I'm not really sure how I'm going to arrange these colors. They might end up looking terrible. I might end up just doing like every other stitch, like only use these two throughout the whole thing for the color work. I still have to think about it. It might be a sort of a trial and error thing. So in terms of sizing, I have a 21-inch head circumference I've measured, and the hat doesn't tell you, the pattern doesn't tell you how much ease you should account for. So, I mean, with a hat, you usually want negative ease because you want it to fit tightly over your head. And the adult sizes, adult small through large, are all an inch apart an inch apart, 18, 19, and 20 inches. I'm on the fence about which size to make because I tend to think of like 1x1 color work, or any color work in general, as not being as stretchy. So I'll probably not make the small. I think I'll probably make the medium or the large. Probably the medium, which would be a 19-inch hat, but I'm still thinking about that as well. Like I said, the hat in the adult sizes uses anywhere from about 38 to 44 grams of yarn, so I should have plenty. I probably would have plenty of this mini if I used it for like the cuff and one of the contrast colors, to use it like basically by itself. But I still just, I need to like think about how I want to do the colors. I have a lot of like yarn options, and I kind of sat there a little while ago with all of it like strewn out around me and like picking it up and pairing it together and thinking about it. Then I had a lot to actually do in my life, so I held off on casting on this and just worked on the knitting projects I have going already. This I really do want to get started on soon. I'm not really sure if it'll look good. I don't know, but I really like using small quantities of yarn. I'm kind of in like a stash bust, use all your minis, use all your leftovers, and once you've adequately used a yarn, make granny squares mentality right now. So I think this might be my next cast on. I'm not sure. But yeah, stay tuned and we'll see how it looks. Next up is the Gem Moon by Leslie Ann Robinson. That is a brioche wrap pattern. It's knit in 3 colors of fingering weight yarn. I've discussed this pattern, I think, and these yarns before because I bought them all on the yarn crawl. I'll be using these 3 colors. Basically, I thought it would be fun while I was on the yarn crawl to get some different yarns from different stores and make something together with them. This is something that I have kind of aspired to do for a while and I haven't quite succeeded. But I think that this will work really well. I'm excited to try this. So the yarns I have, first is Fiction Fibers Cryptic Note. So this is from the Fiction Fiber Girl Detectives colorway collection. It is 100% organic merino, fingering weight, and there are 437 yards per hank. And I believe that none of their yarns are superwash, so this is a non-superwash yarn. I love like a cornflower blue. I also love a Girl Detective, so I think that this color just really spoke to me. I got this at Busywork Craft Supply in Martinez, and yes, this was the first skein that I bought. And I figured, I was seeing a lot of merino singles around. I feel like they're kind of a popular option for a lot of dyers, so I thought they would be easier to find more than it actually was, but I did find 2 more. The next one, this button band is pretty loose for some reason, but this is Lichen and Lace 1-ply superwash merino in the colorway Huckleberry. I got this from Knit House on Main in Tiburon, which has unfortunately since closed, but was a really beautiful store. So this is 100% superwash merino, 400 yards, and 100 grams. And Lichen and Lace is a dyer out of Canada, I believe. I'm guessing this says New Brunswick. So excited to try this. And then the last one I got is La Bien Aimée. It is the merino singles base and in the colorway Nebula. And this is also 400 yards per 100 grams and superwash merino. And I got this at A Verb for Keeping Warm in Oakland. This shawl should use almost all of each of these yarns. So it uses about 1,130 grams total, 375 yards of 2 colors and 380 of the third. Because I have a little bit more of this yarn, it's 437 yards versus these 2 being 400. This is probably the one I'll do the 480 or 380 in, but I don't really know. I haven't decided. But I think that these will work together pretty well. It's like a pretty nice fade. I think the middle one is reading a little bit darker than it actually is. Like maybe, yeah, there's some lighter parts on it. And I think that you alternate using 2 colors at a time throughout. That's how the other Leslie Ann Robinson pattern I made, the Current Mood, was. That is a project I talked about a few times, and one that I did use as a travel project, I think 2 years ago for winter. Something like this is kind of a good travel project for when you have more focused knitting time, like when you have downtime and you're able to concentrate on your knitting more. I have this like struggle between wanting to pack really light and wanting to have knitting projects, basically. Like clothes, whatever else, it's not that hard for me to limit myself in terms of most items when I'm packing. I'm a pretty good light packer. But especially on a trip like a winter break sort of trip to Alabama, where I will be probably working for a while, there will be a lot of downtime, a lot of time to kind of hang out by ourselves. It's not one of those vacations where you're like out and running around all the time. I do want a lot of projects, and I want a lot of different options to knit. And a brioche, like color work pattern like this will definitely be something that keeps me more occupied, because, you know, it's like a complicated pattern, but it's also fingering weight. So the yarn itself won't weigh that much. There's only 3 skeins, but it will probably take me a while to get through. So I think that this is something that I'll bring with me for that. It's not a huge priority project. I don't think I'll cast it on too soon. Maybe, you know, just a little before I leave, so that I'll have a flow and know how the pattern works before I go. But I think I'd mostly just like to have this done before the next Bay Area yarn crawl so that I can wear it then, but it's not a priority. So this will probably be the last thing that I finish, but I do want to start it probably before the new year. So I have one slipover pattern, and that is the Stockholm Slipover by Petite Knit. I think that's probably a familiar pattern to many of you. It's pretty popular. It's a worsted weight vest pattern. It comes in adult extra small to 5X, and that's a bust circumference of 35.75 to 61.5 inches, or 91 to 156 centimeters. The gauge is 19 stitches per 4 inches, and it's meant to have about 2 1/4 or 6 centimeters of positive ease. So I've had this pattern in my library for a long time. I bought it a while ago, and I think the yarn that I was planning to use it for, I just kind of decided that I didn't super want to use it for that anymore. I have had this kind of in mind for a while, but no solid plans to make it. Like most of Petite Knit's patterns, this is written to help hold 2 yarns together. It's written to be a fingering plus mohair yarn at a worsted gauge. She's not super good at giving you like specific yardages of yarn that you need. So especially when it comes to something like making this pattern with a single strand of worsted yarn, I'm not totally sure how that will work. But I have this yarn that I got from my fiance's mom. It's this like tweedy green yarn, like a dark green. I don't know if it's showing up more brown, but it's pretty dark. And it's from a shop in the Aran Islands. I believe the shop name is On Pukan. I'm really sorry if I'm super butchering that. This sticker was just kind of on both of the balls. There was one like holding the end of each of them down, but it fell off of both. But I still have one. I think the other one is somewhere too. But basically, she gave this to me for Christmas. I just have these like 2 balls. I don't really know what it is, but I think I found it on Ravelry. And I have about 250-ish grams. And I mean, looking at like the weight, it looks like it's probably a DK to worsted-ish weight. Try to And when I was looking at the Stockholm Slipover pattern, and I looked at project pages for people who used worsted weight yarn as a single strand, it seems like for the first like 4-ish sizes, people are using under 250 grams. So I think I should probably be okay. I'll probably knit the 3rd size, which is 39 3/4 inches or 100 centimeters. And that's about 3 inches of ease on me. So it's a little above the recommended pattern ease. I don't want a vest that's like super big. 3 inches is probably fine, but I will really need to swatch this yarn and see how it looks knit up, what sort of gauge I'm getting, and I might end up like adjusting which size I make based on that, or potentially even adjusting which pattern I make based on that if my gauge is really different than the 19 stitches over 4 inches called for in this pattern. I would love to use this pattern because I already own it, so it's not free, but it's like free for me to use because I spent the money like 2 or 3 years ago, so it feels that way. But I think that this is something I'd like to wear soon. I do feel like I've found myself wanting to wear vests to work. I don't work in a super fancy office, and I think something like this will be nice, especially as it gets colder there. So we will see. I think I have 2 swatches drying right now, and I think I'll probably swatch this before I do almost anything else and see kind of what I'm working with. But I'm really excited to try these new yarns. It's very rustic. I don't really have enough to make something next to skin, and I think that's probably for the best. I think that these are really pretty, and I've been wanting to do some like multicolored tweedy projects, so I'm looking forward to that. So I'll finish up with my 2 sweater patterns that I'd like to work on, starting with the September sweater, also by Petite Knit. This is a very popular pattern as well. It's another pattern I've had on my list for years and that I've owned for years, and I even knit most of one with a yarn that ended up being kind of not suitable forever ago, like probably 3 or 4 years ago. This is an all over brioche pattern, and it is worsted weight. It comes in sizes 5X to, or extra small to 5X, and the bust circumference is 35.5 to 63 inches or 98 to 160 centimeters. The recommended ease is 6 inches or 15 centimeters, and the gauge is 12 stitches by 28 rows. Makes a 4-inch square. I'm going to be using Knit Picks Simply Wool Worsted Twist in the colorway Wilhelmina. This is a discontinued yarn, but there is a Simply Wool worsted yarn that is not discontinued. Basically, this one just has like 1 strand of like a natural and 1 strand of this lighter, like warm toned gray. I think that there are some twist versions in the non-twist, like Simply Wool worsted line now, but you would have to check that out. These yarns are 218 yards for 100 grams, and I have 7 skeins of the yarn. I'm working on gauge right now. I gauge swatched a long time ago. It was too tight. I just swatched again, so I will check that. But I'll probably go with the 2nd or 3rd size, which is 40.5 or 42.5 inches, which is 103 or 107 centimeters. This is another one of Petite Knit's patterns. Like I said, basically all of her patterns are this way, where it's written for multiple yarns held together. In this case, it's written for 3 strands of mohair held together. I think it's 3. So I again kind of have to just estimate and hope that I have enough yarn. In this case, it seems like for the like first 2 to 3 sizes, for like sizes small through medium or large, people are using like 100 to 1200 yards of yarn. So I should have more than enough. Obviously, it depends a little bit on like the gauge that people are getting, the weight of the yarn, the yards per gram. Like there's obviously a lot of things that go into like whether or not you have enough yarn, but I think I should have plenty. This is one of those projects that I just kind of need to like bite the bullet and start. I think this will be, I don't know. I don't know if I'll knit this one first or my next one first, but both of these sweaters are things that I just really want to use. I want the yarn out of my stash. I want the sweater on my body. So I don't know, but this is something that I would like to have very soon, that I think, you know, the window during which it's appropriate to wear in California isn't super long. And this is from my Make 9 2 years ago. So it's like, it would be really nice, or last year, I don't know. It's from an old Make 9 and I would really like to have it done. So hopefully this I can finish before or not too far into 2025. And the last pattern I'm going to make is the Port Sweater by Ozetta. That's the only pattern from my Make 9 that is on this list. I'll make a video talking about how my Make 9 went. There's some things that are just not going to end up working out for various reasons. And then I guess there's some summer things that I kind of missed. Anyway, that's not what this is about. This is the Port Sweater by Ozetta. It's an oversized top-down drop shoulder sweater. I think it's top down. I actually didn't check that, but it's a mock neck with these sort of almost like ribbed details along the armholes. It comes in sizes extra small to 5X, 40 to 69 inches, or 100 to 175 centimeters. And the intended ease is kind of a lot, 9 to 10 inches. And the gauge is 16 stitches in 24 rows over 4 inches. I want to use this yarn that I've had in my stash for a long time. Ooh, what's going on here? This is Norotenin in this ball, Knit Picks Aloft. So Norotenin is, I believe, a discontinued yarn, but you might be able to still get it. I have it in the colorway Salmon. It's this like single ply, thick, thin kind of yarn. It's 50% wool, 25% silk, and 25% alpaca, and it's 275 yards per 100 grams. I will hold it with Knit Picks Aloft in Oat, which is a silk mohair yarn from Knit Picks. I used these in a previous project, which I frogged. It was a brioche project, which I don't know if it was the most appropriate for a yarn that had quite as much like silk and mohair, or silk and alpaca content. It grew a lot. I also made some bad choices in terms of like modifying the pattern that I tried to knit. I'll link that video. It's like one of my very early ones where I talk about the sweater and actually try on the sweater that I made with this yarn before. It just, yeah, it didn't turn out well at all. It turned out really, really badly. So I frogged it and I ended up with a bunch of these balls that have like the two yarns together, because I knew I would probably just knit them together again and I didn't really want to bother separating them. So I should have plenty of yarn. I have 1,300 yards of the Aloft and 1,100 yards of the Tenon. I don't love a huge amount of ease, so I'll probably knit the first or second size, which are 40 and 44 inches. It kind of depends how my swatch works. The swatch I just knit that's blocking right now, I think will be a little bit larger. Like I think it'll be something like 15 stitches over 4 inches. It's kind of hard to get an accurate swatch when you're using this like yarn that has a lot of variation in thickness. Depending on the final blocked gauge of that swatch, I might end up making the first size because I imagine that it will be larger. Like my swatch gauge is always a little bit tighter than my garment gauge because I have the whole weight of the garment on my needles while I'm knitting and more stitches that I'm knitting around, so it just ends up being a little bit looser when I knit the final project. Ozetta's sample, or her calculated gauge, what she says in the pattern that you'll use, is 868 or 974 yards of the worsted weight yarn for the first or second size, so I should have enough either way. Obviously, if my gauge is different, the amount of yarn I use will be different, but I think, you know, I have a pretty good buffer in this case. It's also meant to be held with a mohair. Like this is a pattern written to hold a worsted and mohair weight yarn together, or worsted and lace weight yarn together. This is a really interesting yarn. I'm excited to use it again. I found it like it's just different. Like I don't use a lot of thick, thin yarns. This is kind of it's just different. The one thing that will be interesting is finding, if I need all of them, all the different like remnants of this yarn that I have lying around, because like I said, I frogged all these different balls. I think I'd done some like skein alternating, just like the balls I had, the hanks were really different colors. So I did some alternating. I did a variety of different things. There's some yarn that I didn't use. So I have these balls of like the two of them together. I have wound cakes and balls of the tenon alone because it came in a hank and I had to wind it. I don't think I have any like not unwound hanks, but I have like separate bits of yarn and bits of yarn together, and I think I've gathered them all in one place. But whenever I do something like this, I feel like I often end up sort of finding like a random bit of the yarn in a weird place. Like I think this ball never made its way back into the stash with the rest of it. If I end up needing to use every bit of yarn, I might end up having to go on a like expedition throughout my apartment to find it. This is for my Make 9 this year. It is something that I'd like to get done. I think if I'm being honest with myself, I want the September sweater a little bit more. Like I want to be able to wear that more than I want to be able to wear this. I'm hoping that because these are worsted weight patterns at, you know, pretty loose gauges, they'll go pretty quickly, although brioche obviously tends to take a little longer. I mean, I make mostly fingering weight sweaters because I just don't need super heavy items. I think that these will go pretty quickly for me. It was really strange using these like size US 8 like needles while I was knitting this because I just never use needles that big really. But I think it'll be a nice change, and I'm really looking forward to having some like comfy throw over sweatshirty garments, and are something that I can wear out and feel good, like I'm put together, but also something that I want to lounge around in at home. So that's it. Those are the 5 projects I hope to complete by close to the end of the year. Those are my winter plans, early winter maybe plans. Thanks so much for hanging out with me while I talked about all of it, and if you want to chat, I'd love to hear the type of things that you have on your list for your winter plans. I know a lot of people probably have more winter knits for other people on their list, and I'd like to hear about that too. Any gifts that you're planning to make. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a like and consider subscribing to my channel. I'm still trying to find my groove after my semi-unintended hiatus and starting to film again with a full-time job, but my hope is to make videos and release them every 2 to 4 weeks. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.